All right, guys, bigger than a planet, smaller than a galaxy. It's the solar system. Let's talk about ours.
Yeah, our solar system. Okay.
Because who cares about other ones?
Yeah, whatever. That's theirs.
So our solar system, just in a nutshell, includes the sun and all the objects that orbit it. So all
Yep.
the planets and any other rock and stuff that might be out there.
Yep.
Right.
The sun's at the center of it, and the planets, asteroids, meteors, comets, etc., go around
All
it.
going around it. So it's the
Yep.
major in our solar system. It's the major gravitational mass, and
Right.
we
Thank
all
you,
kind of
Copernicus.
swirl around and pull on each other and fly and do stuff, and it's cool.
And there's a good picture of our solar system,
Look
although
at that.
not at all to scale.
Not even
It's
close.
way more spread out than this. So we are
Yeah.
not all
We
that
would be
closely
incinerated
packed
that
together.
close and we would
So,
have crashed.
but it's just a show for reference, like a little map of where everything
There's
is.
your order.
But once again,
Cool.
it's not to scale at all.
Not even
Maybe
close.
the sizes, but those might even be a little off. But the spacing between, it's nowhere close.
Yeah,
So,
we're not even near viewable from each other.
yeah.
So let's touch back a little bit on the formation of the solar system. Now, I already said the universe is how old? Right, 14 billion years old. That's awesome. But actually, our solar system is about 4.6 billion years old.
So it's younger than the overall
It's younger because,
universe.
boom, explosion, lots of molten stuff and gas, and things had to coalesce and come together
Cool.
and form and cool down and turn into more or less our present state of the solar system. And that was about 4.6 billion years ago, give or
Sweet.
take several million years. Likely most of our stuff came out of a nebula, which we talked about.
Like
It's
most
just-
stars do, right?
Yeah, like
Right.
most stars do. It's just a big mass of, like, think about it as galactic Lego building blocks, and this is how they get
Yep.
put together and build this stuff. Gravity is the big mover for this thing, guys. As more mass gets formed, more gravity is a result of that, and you get more things coalescing and sticking together. So,
I heard
Cool.
once that it's thought that there were like up to 20 planets in our solar system when it first formed.
that is ridiculous.
I have
Where would
heard
they
that
have all
too.
gone?
Ended.
Yeah, they're
Jupiter.
rogue planets, and also some rogue planets that might have fallen out of our sun's
Orbit and all that?
gravitational
Yeah,
field,
or even pulled in by other gravity, or been destroyed.
So
Collisions.
yeah.
Since-
Speaking of planets,
Oh, we should probably define
yeah,
a planet.
because we're
or-
going to
Talk
talk
about
about
what these
yeah,
things are.
we're going to talk about the planets. Historically, there have been 9 planets in our solar system, but as a few of you have probably heard, there are now only officially 8 because Pluto has been downgraded. Now,
Thanks, Pluto.
the International Astronomical Union actually agreed on what makes a planet,
Yep.
and based on what everyone agreed was the criteria for a planet, Pluto didn't fit that. That's why it's not considered a planet anymore. But here is the definition. It is a celestial body, meaning something that goes around the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And there
Or
we go.
a star.
Goes around the sun,
Yeah.
or a star. It has enough mass so it is almost nearly round.
Because of the spin.
Okay, not everything's a perfect circle or
Right.
perfect sphere.
Not even the Earth. This is a fakey one.
Yep.
We're not quite.
And then finally has cleared the neighborhood around its orbit, meaning that there is within its orbit there is nothing that it would run into, nothing interfering
Right.
with it.
Nothing
Like
that's
Earth,
also permanent.
we don't, nothing permanently. Okay, there's comets that occasionally cross our orbit,
Right,
right?
but that's- yeah.
But we're not in the middle of an asteroid belt or
Yeah.
anything like that.
True.
Okay, so that's why none of the asteroids are considered planets.
It's basically the dominant celestial
Yep.
body
Okay.
right there.
It should
And-
also be noted that I think
Orbit.
the reason why they came up with this was because we were starting to discover planets
Yeah.
elsewhere, and we
Just
needed
like
something
Pluto.
to define it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, but there are a lot of objects just like Pluto, so we need
Right.
to. Okay, we're gonna call these all planets, or are we gonna make Pluto not a planet?
So we're refining these theories. We're
Exactly.
making
Right.
them clearer
Right.
and more defined.
And we'll address the Pluto issue a bit more, but we're gonna go from sun all the way out.
Yep,
so
so let's start.
here we go. Oh, and we divide the planets. We call we have the 4 inner ones and the 4 outer ones, and they're divided by an asteroid belt right in the middle between Mars and Jupiter.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Right, so our first planet is Mercury. It's the one that's closest to the sun, has extreme temperature variation. We talked about this before, but since it has no atmosphere, it gets really crazy hot when it's facing the sun and ridiculously cold when it rotates around away from the sun. Has no atmosphere, spins very slowly, so there's about 3 spins of Mercury for every 2 times that it actually goes around the sun, which is, when you think about it, ridiculously slow because our Earth rotates on its own axis
365 times.
365 times
for
Point
every
two.
one time it goes around.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So-
Mercury has really long days, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so when we say on the bottom the
Hot,
80-day
long,
orbit, that means Earth Day.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah, we're always
and
talking about our frame of reference on Earth.
lots of craters because it's got nothing to stop stuff from just hitting it.
Right.
Yep.
Now Venus. This is the second planet from the sun. It is also the hottest planet, even though it's not the closest. And this is because it has a really intense greenhouse effect, which we talked about earlier in class.
Right.
It is about the same size as Earth. In fact, if there wasn't such a weird atmosphere, it's thought that Venus would have a lot in common with Earth. But they have most of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, so a lot of heat gets trapped, and therefore it's really, really hot, as
Extremely
well
hot.
as a really heavy atmosphere, so there's a lot of
Yep.
pressure. In fact, I wonder what would kill you first, the pressure or the heat? Actually, a
Yeah.
lot of people say the pressure would kill you first.
Probably.
But, yeah. But anyway, there's also a lot of sulfuric acid.
Just not a very nice place to go.
Right.
The only thing we've ever actually gotten to land there was a Russian probe that landed, and it
It
lasted.
did send pictures back.
Yeah,
though.
it lasted long enough to send a couple pictures back before basically it melted.
Yep. Yeah, most materials we have would just get destroyed.
Right.
Here's Earth.
All right, Earth. Let's talk about Earth. Boy, you guys saved the exciting one for me. Earth, you've never heard of, but it's the third one from the sun. It's got ideal conditions for life as we know it, as we define it. Obviously, just look around.
Mm-hmm.
We're alive. So, and it has a lot of good liquid water that we need. We've got a good atmosphere for holding just the right temperature. As long as we don't botch that up, it won't get too warm. We have oxygen, nitrogen. We've got enough carbon here to keep things kind of humming along. It's not a bad situation. We've talked about this one a lot, but keep this planet in mind when we start to talk about all of these other planets, so you have a little reference point there for you.
Yeah.
We should also mention that we have a moon.
Not a planet.
In case you didn't know,
Yeah,
we
it's
do have
not
a
a
moon.
planet.
It's our buddy. He's a shield.
It orbits our planet at about 385,000 kilometers, which is really actually close when you get into
Crazy
astronomical
close.
distances.
Yeah.
It's covered with lots of craters due to asteroid impacts because it has no atmosphere to stop and slow stuff down.
Rocks smash into it.
Yep.
And leave a big dent.
Reflects sunlight, causing it to shine. So when you see it shining, it's not because it's glowing at us. It's just the light coming off
Yeah.
from the sun.
The sun is hitting the moon, and we're seeing that light up. It's like a
And you get a lunar eclipse when the Earth basically gets in the way or in between the sun and the moon, and it kind of the Earth is
sun.
blocking the light from the sun hitting the moon.
yeah.
And
so
then
the
solar
Earth
is when
casting a
moon
shadow
blocks
on
the
it.
sun.
Right, exactly.
And solar, is when the moon goes in front of
Yep.
the sun.
So lunar eclipse you get when the Earth is between the sun and the moon. Solar eclipse you get when the sun is between the Earth and the sun.
The
We
moon-
can
the
show
moon
you
is
guys in
between the
class
Earth
with
and
our
What did I say?
flashlights.
Yeah.
the sun is between the Earth and the sun.
Here's
We're
what you
moving
do.
on. They
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
Ask us in class. We'll show you.
You get the
All
idea.
right. So
I can
Mars.
talk.
Mars is also one of my favorites. They're all
Yeah.
my favorites.
There's
really.
a lot
for
of
the
big
Roman
stuff.
God
It's the fourth of the
War.
sun. We actually just landed a rover on it in 2012. So
Little vehicle.
which
Robotic
Will
vehicle.
landed. There's some grammatical errors there, but we'll let it go. So we've landed a few rovers on there. There's evidence there used to be liquid water, and it's possible that bacteria might have once lived on
Bacteria
Mars.
are living.
We don't really know. It hasn't been ruled out, but also
We're
has the
looking for it.
largest mountain in the solar system that we know of, called Olympus Mons, and it's 3 times larger than Mount Everest.
Really big. And actually,
So-
they've just recently done some, well, I shouldn't say they. Curiosity, the rover, has just done some new studies where they've actually grabbed some soil out and put it into its little machinery, and they actually found liquid water inside the
Yep.
dirt, the regolith, as they call it.
So if we find
And there's a picture of that was the prototype of the Mars rover.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look online, you can see it takes selfies of itself and
Yep.
sends it back. It's kind of
is it
interesting.
like
He's
bees,
fierce.
Like fierce?
Yeah.
No, it just has a camera.
So if we find bacteria, evidence of bacteria on Mars, would that be the first alien life we found? Something
Yeah.
living on a planet that isn't ours? That's awesome. In our lifetime, to find aliens, even if they're bacteria, is huge.
We haven't found it yet, but
Not yet, but
Hopefully.
fingers crossed.
We're looking.
you want to take the asteroid belt?
Yeah, let's talk about asteroid belt. Also, not a planet, but what I want you to think of is like a belt, like either a ring or a field or some kind of area of asteroids, little rocky chunks, some larger rocky chunks of that. And it's between Mars, our 4th planet, Jupiter, our 5th planet, and there's this big field out there, and you can see they're anywhere from 3 kilometers, which, hey, not that big, galactic-wise.
Right.
Something like that hits our planet, it's game over for a while. All the way up to like 700 kilometers in diameter. Most of the asteroids stay out there. Some will drift around. Some will be bumped by other ones and maybe knocked out of like the gravitational pull of other things like that. And these things are traveling as most things, like our planet we know is spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour kind of thing. These things travel at supersonic speeds, which means faster than the speed of sound. You can't hear them because why? There's no atmosphere in space.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even get to talk about the chances of things hitting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I feel bad. I don't want to now.
Okay.
Take a look at this artist's rendition of asteroids in space.
All right.
We'll talk about the chances of things hitting us in class.
Yeah, we
That's
have,
something-
we have a good article.
yeah,
on
that's
that
something
game.
we want to save for in class anyway. It's very neat, so we're just being goofy.
All right.
Jupiter.
It's
the
big.
5th planet from the sun. He's a big one.
Yes.
He's a big one.
Yeah,
He's actually the largest one in the
husky.
solar system. You could take 1,300 Earths and shove him inside, and he'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
We have lots and lots of images of the atmosphere that show swirling clouds of various different elements, mainly hydrogen, helium, methane, and ammonia. And it's got this banded appearance due to the jet streams, kind of like how we have jet streams, but because it's got all those different gases, you get different colors. It looks really pretty, actually.
Yeah, and the winds are very fast.
It's got 64 different moons surrounding it because it is so large it can hold them all in place. And it's
We'll
got
talk about a few special ones.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Some really cool ones. And there's this really giant, great red spot in the middle of it. It's basically a giant storm that's been raging for hundreds of years on
Right.
the surface of it. Cool thing about Jupiter, though, is it acted basically
There it
kind of
is.
like a big vacuum cleaner, and they say is one of the leading things that's cleaned out most of our solar system because it
Yeah.
is so big.
Rogue planets and other
Yep,
little
it just kinda
asteroids and
sucks
that.
everything
pulled
up.
into its gravitational force. It just keeps getting bigger.
Yep.
So Saturn is our 6th planet. It actually also has a lot of moons. It has 18, not quite as much as Jupiter, but
Still a small.
it's famous for its rings. And if you're wondering, its rings are made from dust, rock, and ice.
Lots
really
of ice in
small
space.
particles, and they're rotating around. And they are held in place by the gravitational forces of Saturn and the moons. They hold the
Yep.
rings in place. And another fun fact about Saturn: it is less dense than water.
So
It's
if you,
like 0.53 grams per
Right.
centimeter cube. So Saturn would float in the ocean if it wasn't way, way, way,
Yep.
way larger than Earth to begin with.
it's
So
kind of cool to think about, though.
yeah.
Gassy, yeah. All right. Any way you say this, it's hilarious. You could either call it Uranus, like I was taught when I was a kid, or the newer name, people call it Uranus. Either way you look at it, not a good name for that. Let's talk about Uranus and Neptune. 7th and 8th planets. They're on the outside of our solar system
I
here.
get it now.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I got diagrams out of a biology book. I'll show
Okay,
you.
thanks.
They're both smaller than Jupiter and Saturn. Big gaseous atmospheres. Big atmospheres, fat packed with gases. A lot of not good gas for us, especially if you look like the upper layers in there have a lot of methane, very flammable.
Right.
Also very toxic to all the life that we know. Well, most of the life that we know here on the planet. Not all.
Makes it look cool, though.
Humans, it's bad. Gives it a bluish color, though. It's kind of cool. And Uranus has 20 known moons.
Yeah, it does.
There's nothing humorous about that sentence at all. Neptune's got 8, so a lot of these have a lot of smaller non-planetary bodies orbiting them because of their big gravity. And they both have faint rings, small areas of dust that are also orbiting around there. At some point, they'll probably collapse and be pulled into the planet. So
Cool.
Now, we'll take Kuiper Belt.
Yeah, you
Kuiper
got
Belt's
it.
cool.
So Kuiper Belt is a really, really large asteroid belt, and there's a lot of icy, rocky objects around there. It's way bigger than the asteroid belt, 20 times the width. Now, this is what's around the outside. Now, Pluto likes to hang out in the Kuiper Belt, and Mr. Black here is going to talk a little bit about Pluto.
Yeah, so Pluto, right. So now it's a dwarf planet, which I say is good because I always didn't like his
he's a
smugness.
Pluto hater.
But basically, it was the 9th planet, but it is now not a planet. It has average temperature of negative 230 degrees Celsius, a very, very thin gaseous atmosphere, and a solid
Very light
icy
atmosphere,
surface.
super cold.
Recently, it was downgraded from a planet to a dwarf planet, mainly because it does not have the ability to clear its orbit. It
Because
doesn't.
it's in the Kuiper Belt.
Right.
It's got a lot of
Kuiper Belt,
rocky
it doesn't-
objects.
It
Yeah.
gets beat to snot as it goes through that thing because
Yeah.
it doesn't have the ability. It's not big enough to move
It's
stuff out of its
basically
way.
like the biggest chunk of icy debris in the Kuiper Belt,
Exactly.
more or
Not-
less.
but actually, it's not, because we found other ones that are bigger.
That are
If you
larger.
don't mind
That
showing.
Oh
is
yeah, there are
interesting.
bigger
Yeah.
ones.
So, if you don't mind,
Yes.
Eris there is bigger.
Yep.
Ooh, the
And that's a
god
little
of
further
chaos.
away. Yep.
Which is another reason why they did that, because it is. And if what's weird is Eris, which is not considered a planet to us, so to
Nope.
speak, is got its own little moon or satellite
Mhm.
orbiting it, which
Yep.
is weird.
Right. So, anyway,
The one thing I do like about Pluto is the name of the moon they gave, or Charon that they named it. This is kinda
Charon.
fun.
what's it named after?
Who's Charon?
I don't know.
Ferryman.
Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, Charon is a ferryman who takes the dead in Greek mythology, who takes the dead across
Oh,
the river
that's
Styx.
right.
Okay.
I like it because their moon, his moon, Pluto's moon, is so huge
Yeah,
compared to the
compared to-
planet.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah, no.
But
that thing's
Pluto's actually
gigantic.
smaller than our moon.
Yep.
You know that?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was it. Right under
Lots of
15
neat
minutes.
stuff. A lot of stuff for us to
Yeah.
talk about, guys. Read up on that. Ask some questions. There's some
Do
weird
your
stuff
checkpoint.
Checkpoint.